Story 1. I am a permanently physically disabled guy who in 2007 was renting a room in a large house owned by a lovely older woman from Taiwan. Unfortunately, given the nature of the house, a lot of people there came and went, and sometimes we'd get a real creep, like a single father in his 50s was a pervert. Then we got a woman from Fiji who seemed really nice. Until Christmas Day. See, the owner had the garage renovated into a nice big bedroom, where this 50-ish Fijian lady moved in. However, on Christmas Day, she holed up in her room with her adult son. She decided to start flipping the breaker switches. Recall that her bedroom used to be the garage. On Christmas, when it was 17 degrees F outside, we really needed the power for space heaters. The house was old, so no central heat air. When we knocked on the door, her son would answer without opening up and telling us that his mother was sleeping and we had to go away. This continued for 2 hours before I got sick of it and had to call the landlord up from the next state where she was celebrating with her then fiancé. She drove 90 minutes just to show up and serve an emergency eviction. This brought the woman and her son out, allowing the fiancé to get the electricity back on to the rest of the house. That night, this nutty broad spent the entire night screaming while she utterly destroyed the kitchen. She even managed to rip the oven door off its hinges. Thankfully, the landlord returned in the morning with city police and escorted her out with her stuff. She had a new range unit brought in that afternoon. Story 2. I live in a housing cooperative. I have no idea if there is something equivalent in other countries, but I live in Norway. It's essentially where you own your own apartment, but the cooperative owns the buildings and the land. If you're going to make changes to the building, you'll have to apply for a permit. Otherwise, it's generally done as you please, as long as you don't bother your neighbors. Anyways, I put up a small greenhouse on my private patio, as many others had done, but not this exact type. This was an aluminum construction, not a frame with a loose plastic cover. The building manager, who is best described as a triple Karen, threw a fit. She actually watched me spending 3 days assembling the greenhouse. Then the next day she called me and threw a fit. Not because I put up a greenhouse, but because I had used screws to fasten it to the patio for stability. Apparently, I was not allowed to use screws on the floorboards, as this was considered changes to the building in her mind. And I had destroyed the floorboards. Never mind, the whole patio was built with, wait for it, screws through the floorboards. Screws in the wall were okay, she'd told me, in response to me asking about why she'd put up shelves on her patio herself. But not the floorboards. Apparently, the difference was monumental, and everyone should just know this intuitively. Nowhere, literally nowhere, does it say fastening things to the floorboards or putting screws in the floorboards is not allowed. Not in the house rules, my contract, or in the National Housing Cooperatives law. But she was furious I had done this. I took a deep breath, and as I am quite creative, I immediately thought of a workaround. I'll just put it on wheels. Then, I made a big deal out of this and told her that fastening was essential, because otherwise the greenhouse would not be stable enough to withstand the wind. She said she understood this, but I had now ruined the co-op's property, and this was a really serious matter. She told me to send an application for a permit, to see if she could find a way to get approval from the board. But she could not guarantee I could keep it, she said, with the fakest of sympathies. So I sent the application, with photos, saying what I had done, and that I didn't think I had to apply to do it, as I never considered putting in a prefabricated greenhouse would be seen as changes to the building. My application was rejected, as I anticipated, but she worded the rejection exactly as I hoped she would. I was not allowed to put in a fastened greenhouse, and she probably thought she'd been clever when she included that I was not allowed to put the greenhouse on my front lawn either. I had worked the "it needs to be fastened to be stable" angle hard, because I hoped she, as the Karen she is, would fall for that reverse psychology. So I proceeded to put the greenhouse on wheels. I made a frame from 2x4s and put 8 small furniture wheels under the frame. I then lifted and screwed the greenhouse onto the frame. I put some boards on the sides, just above the ground, to stop the draft. Boom. Mobile greenhouse. I can slide it all over the patio. I put some hooks in the walls and use transport straps to secure the whole thing to the wall for stability. The walls were okay to put screws in, remember? So in effect, my greenhouse is now in the exact same location, 4 inches taller, and with ugly, blue ribbons tying it to the wall. And the patio now has 22 open screw holes, ready to be filled with rainwater in the fall. But oh well, as she's repeatedly told me, it's not my patio. Then I sent an orientation email to the building manager with photos and videos of the sliding greenhouse, with the rest of the board members on copy, where I explained in detail what I had done, and how every step was in compliance with the rejection email I had received, which I of course included. I said the greenhouse was now to be considered a piece of mobile patio furniture, just like my sofa and chairs were, and that I now considered this subject to be a closed matter. I have not heard a single word from any of them. It's been over a week. I think I got her. I can't imagine she'll find a loophole that lets her legally dictate what patio furniture is allowed and not in the co-op, since the patios are stated to be for every apartment owner's private usage. So when Christmas comes, I'm planning to decorate the greenhouse with lights and make it pretty. Because every time Karen steps out of her front door, she has to face my patio where she is looking straight at my greenhouse. The least I can do is make it pretty for her, right? Story 3. This is my first experience with an entitled person other than my mother, and I'm not sure if it belongs here or not. I'm 18F, but sometimes people think I'm 15-16 due to my baby face and severe acne. I have POTS along with permanent nerve damage in my legs. This leads me to using mobility carts in stores like Walmart if I can find them. See where this is going. I go grocery shopping with my dad. He helps me with things that I might not be able to get myself, especially if I can't find a mobility cart. So we walk into Walmart, and I see 3 mobility carts lined up against the wall. My dad tells me that he's going to go to the bathroom, so I get in a cart and I wait by the shelves nearest to the entrance. An employee asks me if I'm waiting for anyone, and I tell her I'm waiting for my dad. I'm not sure if she saw us walk in or not. It also didn't click for me that she may be questioning about why I'm on the cart. My dad comes out of the bathroom and meets up with me, and off we go. Before I get very far, the employee yells at me, "Ma'am, that cart is for handicapped people only." I was taken aback, so I stutter and say, I know, I am handicapped. She replies, "You walked in here, didn't you? You can walk around the store." Getting more irritated, I tell her that the details of my disabilities are none of her business, but I can assure her I am. She walks over to me, turns off the cart, and tries to yank me out of it. My dad steps in and gets in between her and I, and he says, "What the fuck do you think you're doing? My daughter said that she's disabled. Are you really going to interrogate everyone who grabs this cart about their health?" She gets red in the face and says, "She's too young to be disabled. She's just being lazy." At this point, I thought my dad was going to start throwing hands with this woman. We obviously attracted a crowd, and security walks over. My dad and I explain the situation, and to her credit, she says exactly what happened. The security guard asks if I have proof of disability, and I get up to walk with my legs buckling and my right leg being bowed in. That's good enough proof for him, and he walks off. She says, "Well, why didn't you do that in the first place?" I tell her because I don't need to prove anything to a random stranger with no authority. She seems slightly embarrassed and mumbles something under her breath. Then she goes back to where she was standing. My dad just go on with our shopping. Some people. Edit. I did call the corporate number and reported her. I didn't have her name, but I had the times and her description. I'm not sure if anything will become of this or not. Update. I filed a police report and contacted the store manager. The officer I talked to said that he'd see what he can do, and the store manager said that he'd get to the bottom of it, and there will be consequences. Hoping there actually are, and I'm not sure the officer took my report seriously. There does seem to be some action being taken though. Update 2. I called the police department for a copy of my report, and there wasn't one. Shocker. Still nothing from corporate. but they are aware of the assault and should have the footage. Story 4. Some background: I served in the Marines for 8 years with 3 tours in Afghanistan. During my last deployment, our convoy hit an improvised explosive device. 2 of my buddies didn't make it, and I ended up with a traumatic brain injury, losing my left leg below the knee, and a nice helping of post-traumatic stress disorder to top it all off. Coming back to civilian life was harder than I expected. The physical therapy for my prosthetic leg was grueling, but the invisible wounds were even worse. I spent months barely leaving my apartment, jumping at every loud noise, and having nightmares that left me in cold sweats. My therapist suggested a service dog, and that's how I got Apollo. Apollo is a 2-year-old German Shepherd who's been trained specifically to help with my PTSD and mobility issues. He can sense when I'm about to have a panic attack and will apply deep pressure therapy to calm me down. He also helps me keep my balance on bad days when my prosthetic leg bothers me. Apollo wears a proper service vest with patches that clearly say "Service Dog Do Not Pet" and "Working Dog." So, last Friday, I needed to grab some groceries. I usually order online and have them delivered, but I've been working with my therapist on going out more often. Small steps, right? Apollo was by my side, as always, calm and attentive in his service vest. We were in the produce section when I heard a throat clear aggressively behind me. I turned around to see a middle-aged woman with that infamous haircut we all know too well, arms crossed and scowling at Apollo. She rudely informed me that dogs weren't allowed in grocery stores. I politely explained that he was a service dog and was legally allowed to be there. The woman countered that he didn't look like a service dog to her and mentioned that service vests could be purchased online, implying I was faking. I tried to remain calm, as this wasn't the first time someone had questioned Apollo's legitimacy, but something about her tone made me uncomfortable. I told her that he was a trained service dog and tried to continue my shopping. Unfortunately, she persisted, claiming that I didn't even look disabled and accusing me of being one of those people who just want to bring their pets everywhere. This comment was particularly hurtful since my prosthetic leg was hidden under my jeans, and she had no idea about my daily struggle with PTSD. I explained that not all disabilities are visible and asked her to leave us alone. She demanded to see my disability card as proof. I informed her that no such official card exists in this country and that the Americans with Disabilities Act protects my right to have my service animal in public places. By this point, I was becoming flustered, and Apollo sensed it. He pressed gently against my leg, which is his way of grounding me when anxiety builds. The woman noticed this behavior and mockingly claimed it proved Apollo was just a pet, saying a real service dog wouldn't act that way. I corrected her, explaining that what she witnessed was actually one of Apollo's trained responses and that he was actively doing his job. She threatened to speak to the manager, calling fake service dogs a health code violation. Several people were watching our interaction by now, which only increased my anxiety. An elderly couple nearby gave me sympathetic looks, but no one stepped in. I pleaded with the woman to let me finish my shopping in peace, but she refused, demanding I admit to lying. The situation escalated when she stepped closer to Apollo, who remained perfectly calm despite her aggressive behavior. Without warning, she reached down and grabbed at Apollo's service vest, attempting to remove it. Apollo didn't growl or snap testament to his training, but backed up against me, nearly causing me to lose my balance. I had to grab a nearby shelf to steady myself. I shouted at her not to touch my dog. She yelled back that she was exposing my fraud and continued pulling at Apollo's vest. The sudden movement and aggression triggered something in me. My heart started racing, and I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, signaling an oncoming panic attack. Apollo immediately shifted into his response protocol, applying pressure against me and trying to create space between the woman and me. I warned her that she was going to make me fall. Finally, the elderly man who had been watching stepped forward and told the woman to leave me alone, pointing out that the dog was clearly working. The woman told him to mind his own business and continued accusing me of scamming everyone with a fake service dog. By this point, Apollo was actively performing his duties, trying to keep me grounded as the panic attack threatened to overwhelm me. My vision started tunneling, and my breathing became labored. Then a store security guard appeared, followed by someone who looked like a manager. The security guard ordered the woman to step away from the dog immediately. She protested, still claiming I was breaking health codes with a fake service animal and that she was just trying to prove it. She made one more grab for Apollo's vest, and that's when the security guard intervened, physically placing himself between us. In the process, she lost her balance and fell backward onto the floor. She immediately accused the guard of pushing her and claimed it was assault. The store manager helped her up, while the security guard checked on me. He asked if I was all right, and I could barely speak through the panic attack, but managed to nod. Apollo was performing perfectly, preventing me from completely spiraling. The store manager informed the woman that interfering with a service dog is against the law and considered assault in many jurisdictions. She found this ridiculous and continued insisting I was faking and Apollo was just a pet. The manager observed Apollo calmly performing his trained tasks to help me, then explained their clear policy: service animals are welcome in their stores, while harassing customers is not. As I tried to regain my composure, the manager added that security had already reviewed camera footage showing her grabbing my service dog without permission and nearly causing me to fall, behavior he deemed completely unacceptable. The woman was shocked that they were taking my side and demanded to speak to his superior. The manager stated that he was the superior and asked her to leave immediately. When she refused, mentioning she had been shopping there for years, the security guard gave her a choice: leave willingly or be escorted out with police called to report her assault on me and my service animal. She seemed genuinely shocked at being asked to leave and threatened to sue the entire store chain. The manager acknowledged that was her right, but pointed out she was currently trespassing and informed her that after reviewing the incident, she would be banned from all their locations. As the security guard began escorting her toward the exit, with her loudly protesting the entire way, the store manager turned to me and apologized deeply for the incident. He asked if I could continue shopping or if there was something they could do to help. By then, Apollo had helped me calm down enough to speak clearly. I told him I needed a minute, and he offered their break room for privacy. I gratefully accepted and followed him to a quiet employee area where he brought me water and assured me the woman was being escorted off the property. He also mentioned they would be filing a report about the incident. When I felt steady enough, the manager personally accompanied me through the store to complete my shopping. He explained their zero-tolerance policy for harassing customers with service animals and confirmed the woman would receive official notification of being banned from all stores in their chain. At checkout, the elderly couple who witnessed everything approached me. The woman complimented Apollo's beauty and training, mentioning their grandson has a service dog for epilepsy. Her husband encouraged me not to worry about the incident, noting that some people are simply ignorant. Their kindness nearly moved me to tears after such a stressful encounter. The next day, I received a call from the store manager informing me they had filed a police report and asking if I wanted to press charges for assault. Though part of me wanted to move on, I decided to proceed, concerned she might harass someone else with a service animal. Later, I learned from police that when informed about potential charges, the woman broke down and admitted she'd been having a bad day and didn't believe Apollo was a real service dog. Apparently, her perspective was influenced by a previous negative experience with her nephew's poorly behaved, emotional support animal at a family gathering, which led her to distrust any service animals that didn't look official to her. The police offered her the option of attending a disability awareness community service program instead of facing charges. I agreed to this alternative, hoping she might learn from the experience. A week later, I still felt shaken by the encounter. Apollo remained extra attentive, sensing my lingering anxiety. Each day became slightly easier, and we eventually returned to the same store, where the staff was exceptionally welcoming. The manager mentioned that following the incident, They had implemented additional training for all employees regarding service animals and handling similar situations. They also posted clearer signage welcoming service animals in their stores. So, that's my entitled people story. To that woman who thought she knew better than everyone else and felt entitled to put her hands on my service dog, I hope you learned something from those awareness classes. And to Apollo, extra treats forever, buddy. You did your job perfectly. Story 5. Whoa, so many updates. I'm gonna do my best to get you all up to date on what's going on in my life. As of now, I am writing this from my best friend's couch while my child sleeps in her toddler's bed. I'll try to make this all sound coherent, but I may have to take breaks for my mental health. By the end of this, if you're confused or have questions, please ask. I'm not afraid to go into more detail about what happened, given that I can't fully explain everything without making it into a book. Trigger warnings: suicidal thoughts, thoughts of self-harm, sexual assault, and arguments. Before I get into this, I am safe. I am okay. My daughter is safe. She is also okay. I have since managed to overcome the worst of my depression for now and have a much better support system for when I do crash. We are both out of the toxic environment and are picking up the rest of our belongings on Monday, April 21st. My friend is housing us at the moment, and we've made plans to help her get into a new house so we can all have our own rooms as roommates. Okay, for those who don't know me, I'm nearly 24 years old, turning 24 on April 20th, and I'm a transgender man. My friend, we'll call her Ashley, is a 28-year-old woman. Her husband, Tom, is 38. My best friend Sage, whose gender I won't specify here, is 37. My mother is a woman around 46 years old, and my aunt is about 47. My daughter is 4 years old. Then there's a virtual reality friend, Timmy, whose age is unknown. One night, after putting my daughter to sleep, I started drinking slowly, being mindful not to overdo it, while relaxing on virtual reality chat with a friend of mine from Scotland at an online bar. I play on a laptop, so I'm aware of everything around me in real life. As Timmy was trying to teach me how to bartend, I suddenly heard my bedroom door swing open. In came my mother. Clearly not in a good state, she was acting erratically and wasn't taking her medication properly. Her behavior was hostile, which I don't respond to well. She started yelling at me about how my sleep schedule was interfering with my ability to spend time with my daughter, even though I had just taken her to the park earlier that same day. I stayed silent because I was already starting to shut down due to past trauma. I exited virtual reality chat and immediately called my friends into a group chat, muting my computer sound so my mother wouldn't notice. By now, this has become a habit due to how often I've dealt with similar situations. She started telling me I wasn't allowed to wish I were dead because I had a child, and that if I ever acted on those thoughts, she would follow shortly after. I don't remember everything that was said since I had been drinking, but I'll ask my friend to help fill in the blanks. One thing I do remember clearly, though, was bringing up the number of times I had been sexually assaulted. Her response: "You think you've been sexually assaulted? My brothers used to do this to me," and then she proceeded to grab my chest and imitate what had happened to her on me. I shoved her away, screaming at her to stop, especially because I had been assaulted just 2 months earlier and was still dealing with the psychological aftermath. I remember thinking, I'm not nearly drunk enough to deal with this, and got up to make myself another drink. She blocked me from re-entering my room after I retrieved the water bottle I was using for mixing drinks. My lemonade mix was in my room because I didn't want them to use it all, one of the few things that was truly mine. Thankfully, my aunt intervened and made her back off, allowing me to get into my room. I managed to add the lemonade to the drink while my mother continued yelling at me, claiming I was a bad parent for shutting down due to stress and trauma. Eventually, I lost patience and decided to finish a bottle that had been sitting in my room for a month. She tried to take it from me, saying, "No more," as if I were a child. At this point, all I had been doing was drinking lightly. I told her, "No, you can't do that. I put $3,000 into this house and barely see any of my own paycheck, so I should at least be able to enjoy my own alcohol." I picked up the bottle, finished it, and stayed silent for the rest of the argument, hoping she would leave me alone. Once she finally did, I added the rest of what I had planned to mix and went to sleep. The next day, while on the way to get some fountain drinks with my aunt, I opened up about how I felt regarding the argument. Later that evening, while I was relaxing in my room thinking my daughter was asleep in the room she usually sleeps in, I suddenly heard an argument erupt. The yelling triggered my post-traumatic stress, and I went to check on my daughter, only to find her standing in the middle of the argument, crying. I quickly scooped her up and ran to my room, ignoring my mother's demand to put her to bed. I put on a Disney movie on my laptop and gave my daughter headphones to watch it while I disassociated and stayed on the phone with my friends. Ashley and Sage kept asking if I was okay, and I replied in a very muted tone, "I will be. I just need to get through this." They asked if there was anything they could do, and I told them, "If I'm being honest, I want to hurt myself because I can't keep doing this." Once the argument settled down, I took my daughter to bed. My mother was outside smoking cannabis while my aunt was in her room, crying. I went to check on my aunt, and we talked. She told me that my mother had said she was planning to leave, which meant my aunt would end up homeless, since she assumed I would follow my mother. I assured her, "If Mom leaves, I'm not going with her. Not after what she's shown me." We talked and hugged. The next morning, which was my little brother's 22nd birthday, I sat on the phone with my friends. Ashley told me to get ready to stay for 2 days because, whether you want me to or not, I'm picking you both up and getting you out of there for a much-needed break. I packed our things, grabbed my child, and informed my aunt that I'd be staying at a friend's place for a break, and that I'd explain more later. As we were leaving, my mother arrived back home and began screaming, "She's kidnapping my granddaughter." My aunt came outside and told her to stop. She said, "She told me where she's going, and she said she'd explain everything later." Ashley didn't even stop the car. She slowed just enough for me to throw our stuff in and climb into the back seat with my daughter. She sped off while my mom continued screaming from the porch. I remember feeling a weird mix of guilt and relief. I had never left my house like that before, never just grabbed my daughter and dipped without a plan. Once we arrived at Ashley's house, I was met with hugs and reassurances. I just broke down crying in her driveway while my daughter happily ran inside to play with Ashley's toddler. I told myself, just 2 days. You'll reset. You'll go home with a clearer mind. That turned into 3 days, then 4, then a full week. On the 4th day, my aunt called me in tears. She told me that my mom had gone on another tirade and then completely vanished for nearly 2 days. She was scared. She didn't know what to do, and she didn't have anyone else. I told her, "You can come here. There's a couch for you too." And she did. Ashley welcomed her with open arms, helped her carry in her stuff, and let her get cleaned up. That night, the 4 of us, me, my daughter, my aunt, and Ashley, sat down and talked. We came up with a plan to find a house where we could all live together. We even included Sage in the plan because they were already a part of my support system and wanted to help however they could. Meanwhile, I sent my mom a message saying I would not be returning and that I needed space. She responded by saying I had abandoned the family and that I was dead to her. She told me I had turned my daughter against her. I didn't respond. I couldn't. There was nothing I could say that would be heard. After that, she started calling my job and telling lies about me. She claimed I was on drugs. She tried to make it sound like I was unstable and dangerous. Thankfully, my boss had met me, knew me, and didn't believe her. He told me, "Whatever's going on at home, I support you. Take the time you need." The following week, I filed a police report. Not for custody or anything major, yet just to document the past incidents and the current harassment. The police officer I spoke to was sympathetic and respectful. He told me it was a good idea to start building a paper trail in case things escalated. At this point, my aunt and I began looking into legal advice. We found out that since my daughter's father had never been involved and there were no existing custody orders, I had full custody by default. That gave me the confidence to move forward without fear that my mom could legally do anything. Still, I felt like I had to keep looking over my shoulder. Around this time, Ashley sat me down and said, "You don't have to go back. Ever. You're doing what's best for your daughter. You're breaking the cycle." And I cried again. I'd been crying more than I had in years, but it felt different now. It wasn't hopeless crying. It was relief, grief, healing all rolled into one. As the days went by, we started falling into a routine. My daughter was sleeping better. She was smiling more. She and Ashley's toddler became like siblings overnight. I started cooking dinners again, going on walks, reading bedtime stories without the constant anxiety of someone bursting into the room screaming. The silence was peaceful. Every now and then, my mom would send a guilt-tripping message or try to call. I stopped answering. I blocked her eventually. It felt wrong at first, like I was abandoning her. But then I remembered everything. I remembered how she'd grabbed me, screamed at me, mocked my trauma, and dismissed my pain. I remembered how my daughter had cried in fear during the fights. And I reminded myself, this is what protection looks like. We're not completely out of the woods yet. We're still figuring out our next steps. Ashley and I are working on a plan to rent a bigger house, and we've talked about therapy both for me and my daughter. I know it's going to take time to unlearn all the stuff that was drilled into me, but for the first time in a long while, I don't feel stuck. My birthday is in a few days. I used to dread birthdays. They always seem to come with fights, tears, or a breakdown. But this year, I think I'm going to let myself feel okay. Not amazing, not perfect, just okay. And that's a pretty big deal. Story 6. Me and my wife found this gorgeous house, not yet on the market. Realtor had told us we owned all this nice forested land surrounding it. We were sold. Once we were dealing with the logistics of buying, we found out we actually didn't own all this land, and that someone would be building a huge house right next to us. For context, our driveway runs up the side of our house, and the side is really like the front. We decide whatever, it can't be that bad. So the guy takes 2 years to build the massive house that dwarfs ours and kills our view. But whatever, we play nice the whole time, letting him use our power and water. We have to get along after all. I bite my tongue over all the inconveniences and him screwing me over and living through construction. Kept things on really good terms. When we were talking, this guy would tell me stories of times he had to move because of fights with neighbors, trying to look tough, I guess. I didn't think much of it. It all started one day in the winter. The way my driveway is and how close his house is, he told me I could blow the snow on the small section on his side in between. I was very mindful not to hit the house with the snow and everything. One day out of nowhere, he shows up at my door telling me to keep my snow on my own side. Okay, whatever. Fine. Be a jerk. I'm not going to get into it with you. From there, it's him telling me he owns half my driveway because it's on his property, and he's going to rip it up and put up a fence and all this other nonsense. So I try to work with him. He ended up not doing anything but held that over our heads to get his way on everything. He makes me move my shed, and it's like a mini house. Makes me install 180 ft of French drain over a bit of water runoff from my driveway. Meanwhile, he's putting 100 of gal of water on my property from his 2 downspouts on my side and doesn't do anything. One day he decides to put up cameras and points them at our house from multiple angles. This bothers us, but we don't show it. Until a couple months later, he's out there moving them and adjusting angles to get better views of our main hangout areas in my yard driveway where me and my friends and family hang out. So my wife asks him if he can just not point them directly at us. He brushes her off, so I go and have a word with him. This turned into a huge yelling match about all the nonsense happening. At this point, it is clear that we both hate each other. The only reason I can figure is that they are super religious. Like having 8 kids and just being super religious. I am covered in tattoos, piercings, ride motorcycles, and listen to all sorts of metal music. Though I'm no idiot, I am respectful and keep my noise to a minimum, so I'm assuming he just didn't like my style. Anyway, after the camera fight, I decided I would start blasting my music in my garage, with my garage doors open day in and day out anytime I got the chance. And I played some of the most morbid death metal and other songs that I'm sure he wouldn't like just to screw with him. On top of that, I got a drone and started flying around his house. Started doing hooligan stuff on my bike in the driveway. Just being noisy. After a couple months, near Christmas, we see a for sale sign go up. Couple more months down the road, and it's my birthday. They are loading trucks and leaving. Best birthday present I could ask for. Though it made me angry that he brought a Christmas gift basket and my wife accepted it. I took this as my pro-revenge win. The gift basket thing just shows how crazy he was. We would do crazy stuff like that. Gift baskets, waving at us, saying hi, then turn around and do something to start a problem. I'll never understand it, but I'm glad it's over. New neighbors are quiet and never home. Workaholics 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Life is good.